Islam, 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 rising to my highest height, giving perfect praise to Allah, extending honors to all the true and divine prophets, namely Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, and to the last prophet in these days and times, the Honorable Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I want to extend further honors to the Moorish Divine and National Movement, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science of the World, Free and Sundry Moorish Science Temple of America, and the National Grand Sheik Jelani, Akeem Bey. I want to extend further honors to all the Moors, Muslims all around the world, all the ancestors known and unknown, and to the Moors on the call tonight. Grand Sheik Akeem Bey, I will be doing a demonstration tonight. Um, Opening up as we open up every meeting, I'm going to rise to my highest height. I'm going to start out with the Moorish American prayer and then go into the readings. Islam, rising to my highest height, feet at a 45-degree angle, 5 fingers on the left, 2 fingers on the right, facing the east. Repeat after me. Allah, Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Ameen. Islam, to be proclaimed in every meeting. Dear brother Islam, I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There's a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claimed it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as an American citizen, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they themselves may take charge of the situation. I've notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that contribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that pay their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it bad. Never before have I needed finance as badly as I do at present, that I may shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without me, the prophet, being the head. It has been proven by my work in which I have performed in the last few months, because I was at the governor's inauguration to represent the Moorish Divine and National Movement, and I will be at the inauguration of President Hoover for the same cause. Noble Drew Ali. Prophet warns all Muslims, governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. Oh man, what just happened? I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or in the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or prophet or violate the divine covenant or the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah from their unjust deed. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where the prophet found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet in the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through Prophet Noble Drew Ali, through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways by order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam. All right, guys. So tonight, what I wanted to kind of touch on, because one of the attendees, she actually asked me, she kind of posed a question earlier in regards to, the Constitution, and distinguishing, which Constitution the Prophet was referencing, and kind of the context. So what I want to go over tonight again is the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, which is this one here. So I want to go through this document because this document, as well as this one here, Moorish Leaders Historical Message to America, The Prophet Noble Drew Ali references the United States Constitution, um, particularly, and it's kind of, if it can be a little kind of hard to understand that, what Constitution he's talking about, because for a lot of us coming into this information, our reference point for a lot of because sometimes when we come into this information, a lot of us come into it not through the temple, right? So a lot of us come into this information through like a web source, what I'm saying, online, YouTube, whatever, you know what I mean, whatever other website you might frequent or whatever, right? And so the reference point that we come into when we get introduced to the prophet's work, we start seeing certain words that we're used to seeing elsewhere, and the association takes on the form of where we most get our information from. This is why it was so important for Moors to come to the temple, and it was so important for Moors to keep the temple open and keep it pure the way the prophet laid the foundation, the way he demonstrated it, right? The way he did, because he said, imitate me, your prophet, imitate I, the prophet, in word, works, and deeds. And, we got to understand, at the time of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you wasn't getting Moorish science nowhere else but from the prophet. People that sat underneath him, that he ordained sheiks. This is who, if you was a Negro, black, or color, or, one of those people that didn't, know your nationality, you was coming into this information. You weren't getting it. You might hear somebody be like on the street, yo, is this, you heard about that movement, that Moorish stuff, or, yeah, they got a temple around on blah, 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 blah. You would have to go to the temple to get the information. And so the first time you be recognizing and seeing certain words, national government, citizen, constitution, you seeing this in the temple. See, the prophet, even though, this is what we got to understand, the prophet was a genius. The reason why he went religious is to protect us from Rome. This is a civic, or this organization is meant to teach you how to be a government, how to govern yourself, your household, and your people if you're if you're chosen. He strove for 15 years prior to making this a religious organization as a civic organization, meaning he was trying to instill and install in our people a sense of government, civics, what it means to be a citizen, what it meant to be an official or representative of that citizen, of those people. So all the while, he just shrouded what he was trying to do for us in religion, because according to their law, they cannot, this is where we will be protected. They can't infringe upon it. As opposed to the Negro Acts, the Negro laws, the slave laws, the 14th Amendment, Congress has complete and utter control over those people and those laws. When it comes to religion, Congress cannot make a law prohibiting us. So the prophet was, he was just wise enough to, do it that way. Praise Allah for that. And so, in this particular document, the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, right? Right. It starts off, right. It says, the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution. All right. So right now, and see, another thing we got to understand too is, like, when the prophet's talking about certain stuff, we got to come out that reference or that frame of mind necessarily sometimes that he's just talking about the United States national government. Because right now he's talking about all citizens. You got citizens in Africa, you got citizens in Europe, you got citizens in Asia that are all part of free national governments. They're not parts of federations. Most of them, the only outside, you got to understand, the United States of America, the U.S. that we know, the federal government, is a confederacy. They call it a federation or federal government, but it's a confederation of states. Each state gave up a piece of its sovereignty to be governed under one umbrella. That's what the federal government is. The federal constitution governs that and protects the rights of the citizens that sent those representatives to that Congress or that assembly to institute that form of government. right? But each state is a national government. It's in each person. See, the people make up the state first. The people don't make up the federal government. The states and the states' representatives make up the federal government. That's a whole nother jurisdiction. The state government, Arizona State, Texas State, Connecticut State, New York State, New Jersey State, Florida State, these republics, these are the national governments. They each of those national governments gave up a piece of itself to institute a confederacy that they upgraded into a they say a union, right? Of what we have now, what we know now. But see, the prophet saying the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, meaning not according to like the federal constitution, no, your state constitution. If you're a citizen of Washington State, your national constitution is the Constitution of Washington State. You a 14th Amendment citizen, your national constitution is the federal one. Well, not even. You don't even necessarily have a national constitution, actually. It don't apply to you. The Constitution preserves or protects the rights you already have. Remember that. It doesn't give you anything. It just protects them in relation to other citizens and the government. So it says that according to their national constitution are all of one family bearing one free national name. So before the states came together under a union, each person, you was known as from your state. You was a Texan. You was a Floridian. You was a Virginian. North Carolinian. That was your national designation. And of course, you were able to how you say it, participate in that political realm because you had a nationality. You were able to answer and apply to that constitution. And so for us as Moorish Americans, what we got to realize and understand is that, just like every state has a constitution, as long as we adhering to the prophet's laws, we not amalgamating, we haven't given up our, a piece of our sovereignty, so to speak. We not governed by anybody else's law. Just as much as the Constitution of the Republic of China wouldn't apply to you in expressing or protecting some type of right unless you was on the land in China, and you had to enforce that constitution because that constitution governs the law of the land over there. That's just universal. Just like over here, the law that governs the land over here is the United States, the Constitution of the United States of America. That means if you have a situation, something happens, you can complain, according to that document, as you can use it for your protection. In any other free national constitution, as long as you would be in that, if you was in that land or on that land. But as a person, as an individual, as a human being, you have to descend from somewhere that has its own laws too. Because we fell as a people, our empire was defeated. Our ancestors, we were a defeated people, right? like we kind of, it's like that standing was lost, and this is why the prophet had to come, because like for us as a people, there was really no other government for us, because anywhere you go as a Negro, even if you try to apply to become a citizen anywhere, you can't do it. You're gonna get some form of a quasi, some form of a quasi citizenship or something like that. But so it says that, continue, right? Because I don't want to be too long-winded about this. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables. So, like, if you are born somewhere, say you in China, and you fail to recognize the free national name of that constitution, you're gonna be a second-class citizen. Anywhere you go, any person that fails to recognize their free national constitution of their government is going to be classed as an undesirable. And this is the Negro problem, because a Negro, he can't recognize, he has no free national name under the Constitution of the United States of America. And remember, the Constitution of the United States of America is a universal document. Like, it, all free national people come over here and can enforce that document. Even if you a foreign national, right, and you here just on some sort of business or a diplomatic mission or something like that, right, you still have to be governed by, you have to come from a place that has its own constitution, right? The federal constitution is not even, it's not necessarily for how can I say it? I'm trying to word it properly. Like, it's just that we got to understand, like, it's like, to the government is like levels, right? What the Prophet Mudrali, he gave us like a state. He gave us the equivalent of, especially under international law, is considered the equivalent of a state, because you don't have to have territoriality to be a nation of people. That's the beautiful thing about, like, even when you read the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant, because they could take it anywhere. And all that was just their constitution. A covenant is a constitution, agreement. So this is why the prophet said, I have charters that I can issue in every state, because we can set up anywhere, right? And he says that, and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments as the citizens care to bestow upon them, and it's a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. So, like, of course, like, you could consider, the Negro, Black, and Color to be who he's talking to, but really this is a general statement for any type of people, right? So it says that I, the prophet, was prepared by a great God Allah to warn my people to repent from the sinful ways and go back to that state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles. So our ancestors had divine and national principles, meaning they had theocratic government. It was theocracies, right? They had, and they was ruling themselves, right? That they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens, right? So a divine right is an inalienable right. According to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings, right? So now he's talking about, this is a reference to the United States Constitution, because remember, it said to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings, right? So they are to claim their own free national name and religion. So that's the way that Constitution of the United States would apply to them, in the sense that, once they return back to the state of mind, and they become law abiders, these rights are already inherent in that, and they're preserved in the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, right? The first 10 amendments are, the preservation of those, what they call, those are the ones that's just enumerated, because there are unenumerated rights as well, right? So he says there is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement. Right. All right. So this part right here, right, where he says there's but one issue for them to be recognized by this government. So what a prophet saying this government, the controversy is he talking about the United States government, or is he talking about, the, his government, the Moorish government? Right now, once the Prophet Noble Drew Ali put the affidavit on the record, we became a government, right? And in that sense, as long as you could show connection to that entity, it's by proxy or by default that the United States or any other government or any other entity has to recognize you. The prophet was saying there's but one issue for them. He's talking about the Negro. It's saying to be recognized by this government, meaning his government, meaning come in. Once you proclaim your nationality as instructed in Act 6, that's the recognition. Because why? You go on the record of the temple. You go on the record with the temple. Now you're on the temple record. And then he says, and of the earth. So he's saying this government and the governments of the earth. The United States would be encapsulated in of the earth, meaning those other governments. Meaning, China, Italy, France, Germany, Zimbabwe, Ireland, Russia, Australia, Nicaragua, Venezuela, United States. Those are governments of the earth. Where the prophet saying that there is but one issue for them, meaning for the Negro, it's only one issue. To be recognized by this government, meaning his government first, come in, proclaim your nationality. Once you do that, you've been welcome. Now you are part of the family of nations again. And of the earth. And it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine and national movement, meaning only through being connected to this movement, right? Or is this possible? Because remember, this is divine and national movement. This is not just a religious society. It's not just a temple. This is a political instrument. A bazooka, if we really understood what we had. The Moorish divine and national movement is a political bazooka. And it's political because your nationality determines your political status. And if you have to come into the temple and according to Act 6, proclaim your nationality, which determines your political status, why would you not be doing political activity? Why would we not be doing political activity? Because at the end of the day, yes, it's religious and religion protect us and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the prophet was such a genius. We have a government to operate so that we can move politically, unencumbered, unmolested, like all these other people that's here, getting bank, making bank, setting up businesses, providing for their families. But we want to argue. We sit around and argue like nonsense. And it's just, we could be so much for the prophet transition almost 100 years ago. The fact that there's not a Moorish Science Temple of America in every state is an issue. That's a problem. We're not even gonna go into any, all the other stuff that we should have. But our people don't even know who they are. Our people don't even know who Noble Drew Ali is. We know about Marcus Garvey. We know about Elijah Muhammad, Daddy Grace, Father Divine, Master Fard, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner. Like I said, Marcus Garvey. Carter G. Woodson. We know about all these people. We don't know about Noble Drew Ali. Not to take away from any of those, those ancestors, those brothers. Never. So it says now, okay, so now he's talking about the Moorish Divine National Movement, which is incorporated in this government. Again, there go that term. This government. What government he talking about? So
our government, the Moorish government.
Indeed, more. What? Remember, we talking about the Moorish Divine National Movement. That it come through this, that you recognize. Because that's a political action. Once you come into the temple, you proclaim your nationality. It's the form. See, don't mistake the function for the form. The form is religious. The ceremony is a religious ceremony, but the function, you're going through a political change. That's a political act. Just like if you went before any other government of the world and had to do that. The prophet gave it to us. We can set it up, and it's so simple. We can set up this government right in somebody's home, right in the living room. It only takes three people at most. I mean, at least, feel me? And you can start nationalizing, quote unquote, nationalizing people, Moors. We can nationalize whole city, whole towns, cities. But we have to be clear on what the prophet brought, because all the talk that we talk about who we are, our ancestors, how great we were, we still look to the European and his remix. Remember, they adopted that constitution from the Great Law of Peace. Our ancestors on this side, because we have connections to both sides of the Atlantic. That's how special we are as Moors. Like, we have connection to both sides. But our ancestors over here, they adopted that from us. We have to give the European back all his stuff, man. Like, give it back to him. Like I said, it's a lot of the stuff that the prophet said, I'm gonna leave, we're gonna leave the European in power long enough to teach you government. We're supposed to be taking notes. Okay, that's how they got that going on. That's how that's done. And ask an intelligent tone, and when you get that answer, listen. Don't just hear what the person say, listen. Because a lot of the time, they give up stuff. Like the Grand Sheik talk about, when he initially had the plates on the land transport, and he was pulled over by the state trooper, and he asked him, "Oh, these must be religious plates. Are they to your temple?" And at the time, he was under a different organization, but he said, "Yeah, of course." Hand him the IDs, boom, 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 and then boom. Right, I went to open up my bank account, and this is why, if there's ever a question for me when they ask, where do you live, where do you reside, I always say I worship in Connecticut. That's where I worship. Because when I went to go open up my bank account, the lady asked me, "Do you live, work, or worship in here in New Haven?" And when she said it, I didn't expect her to even throw worship in there, but because it's all about jurisdiction. And when she said that, I said, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "Worship. I worship here." Immediately, like, it wasn't even a question. And then when she said it, I just looked, I kind of looked up in my, in my mind, just kind of looked up, and I was like, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, man, like, what I'm saying? The religious jurisdiction protects us. Because we fall into the habit of saying, "Oh, I domicile, this is my ancestral domicile, blah, 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 blah." That's cool to know and understand, but at the end of the day, what really keep them up in the very simple, and it's easy for everybody to understand. You mention certain words that some people, policy enforcers, judges, and whatever you want to call them, they don't know that language. Like, they got a Black's Law dictionary up in their office, but they don't be pulling that thing out like that. They not, what I'm saying? Like, and even if they do, it's not something that they're gonna look at and be like, okay, what's gonna happen is they're gonna, what you want to do with them is you want to stop them. You don't want to get into a whole diatribe about what this mean and that mean. And what they understand very, very well? Religion. Oh, that's religious. Oh, oh, that's religious. Oh, I worshiped it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so this is why I try to tell Moors, make it easier for yourself. You know, if you one of those type of people, you know, you like the road of resistance for whatever, like that's cool. Like, you know, we all have to learn through our own, you know, we all learn at our own pace and stuff like that. But me, I'm the type of person where, like, if I see somebody get burnt on a stove, I don't gotta go touch the fire to know, like, okay, that was uncomfortable. I'm gonna just stay away from that. Now I'm that type. I've grown to be that type of person, but you know, so we just trying to make this transition as easy as possible. So, you know, we're not having all these issues, right? So it's incorporated in this government. So he's saying that the Moorish Divine and National Movement is incorporated into the theocracy. It's incorporated into the temple, right? And recognized by all other nations of the world. So the Moorish Divine and National Movement is incorporated within the Prophet's government. And that in and of itself is recognized by all other nations. The United States will be included in what's highlighted by all. They are all other nations, just like Russia, China, South Africa, Peru, Brazil, Canada. United States is its own. We gotta get out that habit of, like, you know, we still think we're part of them. You know what I mean? Like, and Moors will tell you, reading this document, that the Prophet said that the Moorish Divine and National Movement is incorporated in the United States, and Moors run with that. We are citizens of his government. So, all right, let me keep continuing, right? And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the United States government. Oh, no, excuse me, of the constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations, right? All right, so here, right, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he's talking about, basically he's, you know, clearing up the whole 15th Amendment situation, right? And you got to understand, during the time of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you know, it was still, the common law still applied, right? It the venue had not been completely had not gone completely commercial at that time. You know what I'm saying? The birth certificates, the Social Security Administration, all that type of stuff, all these different contracts that's out now was not out at that time back then. And when you understand, the power of the ballot, or the power of the quote unquote, what they say, vote, right? It's really not voting, but when you understand the power of the ballot, right? Even in our organization, we have when you understand religious corporation, there is voting. There is voting within the religious corporation. You know, and you know, I'll get into because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali actually had representatives that were part of the Congress. And they were members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, right? One was, what's the brother's name? Oscar the Priest. And then another one was he was an alder in Chicago as well. So how you think they were able to get placed in those positions? You know what I'm saying? Why was the Prophet at the inauguration of the governor? Why was he, you know, at why was he going to be at the inauguration of President Hoover? Because the Prophet was working. You know, and at that time, like I said, it wasn't the contracts that a lot of us are in now weren't the same then that hindered, you know, you from being able to do certain things. You know, it's a whole different ball game now. Like just getting them to recognize certain documents sometimes is like pulling teeth. Because why? They want a state issue this and that. They want a state issue that. And this back in them days, it wasn't no state issue, nothing. You presented something, that's what it was. Or you was going to court about it. See me in court then. So, but all right. So he says, "You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials of your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone." So, like, you know, even when he's talking about, you know, acts of your government, he addressing, like, this is another generalized statement. So it's like he talking to the Negro. He could be talking to another group of nationality of people. Go ask your people. Go ask your officials in an intelligent tone. They'll be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. The money doesn't make the man. It is, excuse me, free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. So pretty much what the prophet really touching on here is basically what your national citizenship entails. It entails your true wealth, right? Because without most people in this country have a federal citizenship. Most of us don't have a national citizenship status. Most of us have not properly come out of the system. You know, not to say that certain processes and stuff like that is wrong, but when you trying to exercise certain things as an individual, it's not gonna work. You know, and this is like the where confusion comes in, because, you know, with the fact that yes, we are each in our own capacity a god of ourselves, right? You are the governor of your own actions, right? You are a sovereign entity in and of yourself, in the sense that can't nobody else make you get up and move and do nothing. You got to do that of your own volition. But at the same time, up in the outside world, right, in the realm of politics and in government and stuff like that, you cannot be a nation of one person, right? And then claim to be part of a nation that doesn't really exist. Because what happens, a lot of us get documentation, stuff like that, you know, affidavit this, I fill out my affidavit, I go get it filed, I do this, I do that, and then go file it. And then when we go out and we try to use it, run into problems and stuff like that, and it's like, because it doesn't work that way, right? Nobody's gonna take it. If somebody, it's like somebody has to be, this is why, like, sometimes you gotta co-sign for stuff and stuff like that. But because, like, if you drop on some documentation, who I'm gonna call to vouch for this? Who can I get into? You know, it has signatures and stuff on it like that, but like, it's like, okay, like IDs, right? Say you get an ID off online or something like that. I don't know. I ain't never known nobody to do it with just that ID. Most people that I know that travel with, like, you know, those type of IDs, they really got state IDs and stuff like that when they try to travel abroad. But say you make it abroad and you got an ID that you done got offline or something like that, and something happens to you. You end up dead. You end up missing. You end up harming somebody over there. Some type of altercation. Who they gonna contact to see who you are? You gonna just be in another government somewhere talking about you screaming this Moorish American national, free sovereign, da 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 da. You pull out a whole stack of paperwork. You know what I'm saying? Like it does. We got to do better, Moors. We gotta do better, man. You know, like that's not intelligent. That's not an intelligent tone at all. Like that tone is ignorant, actually. It's very ignorant. And this is the problem. See, we push a lot of this stuff expecting the European or whoever it is to understand, agree, compromise. I don't know, whatever term. We expect the European to do something like that, and then when we don't get that answer, they're bugged out. Oh, it's the system. Oh, but the prophet told us we're supposed to be better citizens, law abiders. He used these terms. Not out here causing confusion. Because then what happens when the true Moors try to get work done, we label separatists. We label, sovereign citizens, all this type of stuff. That was never what the prophet of Jelani intended for this. It's what his detractors and those that meant to take away from the movement and it's a good, they doing a good job. We supposed to have it's breaking up.
Yeah, okay, there we go. I didn't want to miss any of
connection.
that. Okay, all right, it's fine. It's
All
fine.
right. Yeah, no doubt. So like they have children on their calls on Sundays. They have and they be teenagers. They come on, they say their salutation, rising to my highest height. I want to give perfect praise to Allah, I want to extend honors to the blah 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 blah. These are 13, 12. And some of them come on with their families. It'll be sister and brother and his wife, and they got the children. Both of the children are introducing the upcoming topic for that night's call. Like I was going to be a part of that organization. I took the first course that they offered. But again, they want you to go down and get your driver's license, and I wasn't with that. So I never finished it. But the way that they structured, and they have a lot of members. Most temples that are compromised have a lot of members. But that's the beauty, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be our children. They're the future. They're the ones that are gonna take over the mantle and lead this thing, right? We not gonna be here forever, and they have to get this information, and they're the ones that could take this information and simulate it to the era and time that they in, to be able to put this message out. Imagine these young dudes, these new rappers. Imagine if they was rapping about their nationality, at least throwing it in there. Like, I'm not saying they got to be all about Noble Ali, Moorish science, and if they had to entertain and stuff like that. Nah, like you could still be yourself. And that's the message that I think we have to get to our people. Like, you could come into this movement and still be you. You could still listen to that same music. You can still do the stuff you used to do, but be a better person doing it than you was yesterday. That's the point. Be a better person in life today than you was yesterday. Help one more person than you did yesterday. You know what I'm saying? We're not asking nobody to come in and do a whole 180. That's ridiculous. Even the prophet knew that. That's why he said, I can't wake all y'all up at one time. Y'all go back to sleep. And that's what happened. We done went back to sleep. All right, that's that preacher man, excuse me. So continuing, right? So it says, help me say my people have fallen from the constitutional laws of government, not from the Constitution. And we didn't fall from the United States Constitution. We was here before the United States Constitution. We're going to be here after the United States Constitution. We had our own constitutions and stuff like that all over the world before the European understood this concept. We give him way too much credit for this. We got to stop that. We fell from the constitutional laws of government, period. We stopped governing our own individual constitutions of self. Then the family falls apart, then the nation falls apart. So he says, I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again. Not get us back to the Constitution, the United States Constitution. We was never there. As a matter of fact, it never applied to us. Taney told us that. But we love it though. We love our United States Constitution, man. Boy.
Islam, quick interjection. Chief Justice is that was Chief Justice Taney who said that, right?
Yeah, Taney. He said,
never intended to be for Africans or African descendants.
Yeah,
descent.
Right.
Islam, and that's for anybody want to know, it's Dred Scott versus Sanford. Islam.
Well, Islam. The most important thing about that is, he says any African, free or slave. Not freed, free, meaning free from birth, or slave, was not nor ever intended to be a citizen as described in the U.S. Constitution. So this is where Moors make the mistake of clinging to that U.S. Constitution. It's not talking about slaves, it's talking about free Africans. And we are descendants of Northwest and Southwest Africa, right?
Indeed.
Islam.
Descendants
As free inhabitants, right?
Islam.
So, all right. That Taj stuff up out of here. We're gonna get it gets us in trouble. And I'm gonna digress. Let the Sheik do his job. But when you doggone go headstrong with these constitutional principles, because I tried to do a lawsuit based upon those same principles, including the Zodiac Constitution and all that stuff there, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And I made the mistake of lodging my suit in a state federal court, or excuse me, in a state district court. And the argument was frivolous, unintelligible. And they threw my case out, going the constitutional treaty route. So, and time again, I think really since like 2012, I would get a call in the middle of the night. I downloaded this information and I gave it to the doggone court, and they're giving me 90 days before they take my house. Help me, Brother Jelani. I downloaded this, I put it in the court, and they're still trying to send me away for 6 months. Help me, Brother Jelani. And then when I say, well, look, man, I'm poor, man. I need a donation. Oh, nationality is free. You see what I mean? Because that's the rhetoric they got from the same people. Or they call you for advice, and they start spitting you rhetoric from the people who got them in trouble in the first place. See, so we're not just banging on the U.S. Constitution. We have actual situations where that route was detrimental. Instead of, how can you mention no withdrawal and not mention the divine constitution and bylaws? That's our Constitution. And I digress. Go ahead, Sheik. Go ahead, do your thing.
Islam more. Yep, indeed. So,
Islam.
so it says, he said, I love my people and I desire. Oh, wait, hold on. No. Constitutional fold again. So he says, I'm dependent on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. Now, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali he says, he uses this term, the terms live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, right? That love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice is our standard. It's what our flag represents, right? We are a nation under that flag. We are a nation of people under that flag, under that covenant. That flag represents the covenant of who we are, right? Those 5 points on that star: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Our divine constitution and bylaws. Let me pull up our divine constitution and bylaws, right? Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members, right? Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and what? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Supporting whose constitution? Our free national constitution of the United States of America. Listen, that constitution that Moors keep referring to is not a national constitution. That's for the Constitution of the United States of America is a federal constitution. Our national constitution of the United States of America is this right here. This is ours, just like every state. Every state has its own constitution. That's a national constitution. The constitution that was put together when all the delegates went to represent the states, that's the federal constitution that governs the states. That constitution not supposed to apply to citizens, national citizens. It's only supposed to apply to, and I'm talking about the articles, the amendments. And remember, again, the amendments protect and preserve our rights. The articles govern the federal government. The articles govern, just like our articles that you see on the screen, govern us as officials, and then the acts govern the members. The acts 6 and 7 are bylaws. That's why they're on the other side of the prophet. Those are what the member, we all bound to this, but the members come in under 6 and 7. Those are your duties, really. The Constitution really governs the officials mostly. Just like their Constitution, their articles, their first 7 articles govern their officials. It doesn't apply to citizens. The state constitutions apply to we the peoples. As a Moorish American Muslim under the Prophet Abu Ali, our national constitution is on the screen.
Islam, Grand Sheik, quick interjection. I never thought of it that way, but it's true, because the first article is for the executive, the second is for the legislative, and the third is for the judicial. So that's all the officials. And then, of course, the Bill of Rights, the 10 Bill of Rights or whatever have you, is for the people.
Right.
And I never looked at it that way. That's a key right there as well. Act 6 and Act 7 is literally for, duties for the household, mother and father and children. And then the first 4 is governing the officials in our government, Islam. I yield.
Indeed. And see, Moors will say, like, you got some Moorish groups that say, the prophet, because he got his hand pointing to Act 6. Act 6 means this, and come on, man. Why we gotta be so spooky all the time about everything, man? It ain't that serious. It's really not. It ain't nothing secret. The prophet wasn't trying. Yeah, that's it. But that's us. We are very superstitious people. But it don't be that
Stevie Wonder told you about that, didn't he?
Very superstitious. Right here.
Islam.
We getting down. So, so the prophet, he telling us that, we have, help support our free national constitution. of the United States of America. You know, because we are part of we are part and parcel. You know, once the temple went on the record, you know, that made us part of the American fabric, so to speak, right? It tied us to the republic, right? Like that's that wheel within the wheel that Ezekiel saw, right? We like it's like an attachment. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali would have done this anywhere he was at. If he was in India, he would have had to find some law governing religious corporations to institute a society. He would have just used. He was just in America, and at that time, that's why he went to the Pan American Conference that January, and he was still, you know, it was still under the civic organization. And then when he came back, after further research, he found that Chicago had the best laws on the book governing religious corporations. So that's where he went, and he used that law. You know, at 1871. And so he says, I love my people, I desire their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standard. So there it is again, right? Like our own, not someone else's, not you know, amalgamated as a part of you know, if the Prophet wanted to make us a union or a federation, he would have set it up that way, you know. But so he says, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government. So now he referring to the Negro, and when he's saying, see, before he was using, it was like the possessive, he was using terms like ours. So now he's saying their government, because the Negro, you know, even though he's not recognized as part of the United States government, he is a part of their government. He's a very integral part of their government, actually, as, you know, classified as property. But here the Prophet is telling you why that is, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws. How? By claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. A Negro, Black, Color, African, Hispanic, Latino, West Indian, Indian, Native American, those names are not recognized by any free national government anywhere. You know, in the one-on-ones, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that all true, you know, according to all true and divine records, there's no Negro, Black, or color. And when he say all true and divine records, what he's talking about is the Bible is a record, the Quran is a record, and then ancient texts and ancient manuscripts, like even like the walls of Egypt and the tablets in Sumeria, and, you know, all these different places and stuff like that. You go anywhere, you're not gonna find a group of people called, you're not gonna find a Negro, Black, or color group of people. So he's saying, if Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike, right? In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. So, right, so basically the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is saying, like, you know, in regards to the Negro, how you gonna have him in a system where you have other free national people that come and they're able to claim their name and their free national name and their religion before you, but this is not required for the Negro. This should be enforced upon him too, but it's not, because he's not a citizen. So he's saying that in all other governments. So basically now I'm gonna describe the Negro for you. I'm gonna describe this person that y'all are excluding as like unlike the Italians, Greeks, and Japanese and Turks, right? I'm gonna describe this person because in all other governments, so not just looking at your government, I'm gonna give you a mirror. I'm gonna put a mirror up, right? When a man is born anywhere and he raised there, he's asked for his national descent name. If he don't give it, he's misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Even Martin Luther King used the term that Negro was exiled in his own homeland, right? Look at Katrina. Them people was considered refugees. How you gonna be a refugee if you how you a refugee if you a citizen? Like, it's not like New Orleans as a government collapsed and all of its citizens now were just home. They had no government. Those were citizens still. They was labeled, they called them refugees. You only a refugee if you have no state. Or you have no state to return to. If you've been exiled or kicked out or something like that, you have no state. Misused, imprisoned. The prison industrial complex is so big now because of what? Not living up to free national standards and principles. Misused. Aren't our people shot down in the street like dogs, like worse than animals? They'll go get a mangy dog, put a noose with a stick around his neck and put him in the back of a truck. But if you don't comply, they'll put his foot on your neck, shoot you 7 times in the back. Y'all understand? Like,
Islam.
any
Yes.
group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to become a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name. Right? So the prophet gave us this demonstration in Acts 6. All members must proclaim their nationality. To be a citizen of any government, you must proclaim your national descent name. Because they placed their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. That's like this statement right here. This is where he's dealing with in our Moorish Holy Quran in the chapter 3, page 3, where the prophet talks about the industrious acts of the Muslims of the Northwest and Southwest Africa. These are the Moabites, Hamatites, Canaanites who were driven out of the land of Canaan by Joshua and received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle in that portion. In later years, they formed themselves kingdoms that are called this day Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, etc. So there's more. That's another degree. But so this is the trust and issue placed upon the names of our forefathers, because we had treaties with these people. Trust is a lawful term that the Prophet Ali using here. Issues, they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. If there's an issue that happens between you and another citizen, or there's a conference, anything, what's your name? Because your name comes from your forefathers, which would enforce the trust.
Islam.
Page 3 of your doctrine, your document, your state paper, your hadith, your Mishnah, your Talmud, Moors. Page 3, the prophet tied us back through the documentation that he used through his organization. Once you become a member, there's no need to enforce no treaty. What treaty? Page 3, right there, boom. I'm trusting issues. Like y'all already know. I'm a Moorish American. I'm not compromised. But see, the problem with a lot of this is that it's been so long since you know, either the treaty or Moors have been demonstrating this properly, that they've even they have forgotten. So even when you bring some of this stuff to them, you know, first of all, let me back up. Let me rewind that. Most of the time when Moors are trying to bring and enforce a treaty, they're doing it in the wrong venue anyway. A state court cannot deal with treaty. It does not treat treaty law. That magistrate, he's not qualified to even hear that argument. He's dealing with the fact that you got a contract somewhere that you haven't cleaned up, and you still operating as a trustee of that estate in some capacity somewhere. So you go in his venue, Moore's going his venue trying to enforce a standard of law that does not fit. It's not meant to fit there. And what we sit up on this high mighty horse, like we know what we talking about. And when you cross that river, when you cross that bridge, you really start to see like, dag, man, we really make ourselves look really foolish. Because a state court, that's not the proper place to enforce a constitution. It's not even, you can't even enforce a constitution in a state court. I've had magistrates tell me that out their own mouth. That doesn't fly here. That doesn't apply here. It don't apply here. Oh, but didn't you take an oath to, you know? No, he didn't. A lot of times, a lot of them just been to law school. They work for a law firm or something like that. They might have been a public defender or a defense attorney, but they're not getting sworn in. Certain ones do. Mostly appellate court judges and Supreme Court judges. And then also family court judges they have a process, but they're appointed by the governor. I mean, each state is different. Every state a little different. I know in the state where we worship is like that. They got W-2s, man. Where's delegation of authority? Let me see a delegation of authority. He ain't got no delegation of authority order. You know what I'm saying? So, this is where the prophet put us back onto a lot of the stuff that the Moors are, you know, trying to do. Not to say that it's not right. You know, who's to say that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, like, you know, who to say he didn't know about the treaties? But can't nobody show me where the Prophet Noble Drew Ali mentioned a treaty in our doctrine? It's not there. Not even a reference to it. Just on page 3 where he told us that, you know, where I just showed y'all where it mentioned Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, but he didn't say nothing about a treaty. He called them kingdoms. Not to, like I said, not to say that he didn't know. You know, maybe they was dealing with that in the adept chambers during his time. Certain ones that he, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they was dealing with that. But that's what the adept chamber was about, it was for. You know, he was dealing with adept stuff. But he never mentioned it directly. But that's Moore's, you know, that's our go-to a lot of times. You hear that argument. Oh, you know, the treaty and, you know, the stuff. So anyway, so he says the word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word color deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, or dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers. Because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. So, again, like, you know, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is right. So again, yeah. So he's just like I said, he just referencing, you know, your free national name, and how your free national name gives you the recognition that you need. And then at the 14th and the 15th Amendments, so now he's breaking down, right? So a lot of people what we got to understand is that pretty much everything, every law that's passed, everybody that's immigrated here and pretty much all the descendants after 1865 or 1868 are really here, and everything is really instituted on a presumption. It's not really law. Right? When you break down the 14th Amendment, and this is why I like to deal with the 14th Amendment, because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali dropped it in here, where he told us that the 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners who were at that time without power with the constitutional body of power, because they had to amend, right? The South had to amend the 14th and 15th Amendments to come back into the Constitution, because their national governments had seceded from the Union, from the Federation, unlawfully too, according to their Constitution. They did it unlawfully. Well, I mean, I can't even say that, because, you know, when a people feel like a government is running tyrannically, and even the Declaration of Independence say that, you know, they're forced to institute a new form of government. And that's, I guess, what they felt like they wanted to do under the Confederation, but they lost. So, you know, usually what happens is you got to fall in line with the winner. So they had to amend their constitutions to adopt these amendments to come back in place. So this is why I say placing the Southerners who were at that time without power with the constitutional body of power. And so he's saying that, and at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. So again, the Prophet didn't say the free national constitution. Right? He's just saying the free national constitutional law that was enforced in 1774 declared all men free and equal, because the Constitution that we know that most Moors would try to say that he's referring to was not in place in 1774. It was 1789 that the Constitution was ratified. So what free national constitutional law is the Prophet talking about that was enforced in 1774 that declare all men free and equal? Those constitutional laws and principles that brought forth the Declaration of Independence. That's what he's talking about. And he's saying if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there's no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. Because if prior to 1865, you had people that were citizens and was voting, right? Prior to 1865, I don't know how many presidents there were in place, but there were 20-something presidents had already been in place since 1865 that had already been voted without a 15th Amendment. Governors, representatives had been voted and placed into office without the need of a 15th Amendment. So if it hadn't been changed since then, why the need for it? Same thing with the 14th Amendment and citizenship. You couldn't be a president, a senator, governor, mayor, representative if you wasn't a citizen. So Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Ulysses Grant, all these people were citizens too. So what's the need? So if they were citizens before there was ever a 14th Amendment, what's the need of a 14th Amendment for? Just put these Negroes where they need to be. But the thing was, we can't do that, because to do that, we have to give the Negro back his nationality. And to do that, man, you know, everything go back to the way it was. That means we have to educate him about the truth to who he was, his nationality, the fact that he's home, the fact that, you know, our Constitution don't really apply to him because he got his own government. You know, that's like somebody coming to you, right? And they say, you know, help me build this, like, help me build this hut or something, right? You say, all right, I'm gonna help you build a little house or whatever. I'm gonna teach you the fundamentals of building that house. But you got a mansion though. right? You got a decked out, 5-star, however you want to call it, mansion, right? So you help this person build a hut, and then you go live in the hut. That's what we did when we started following after strange gods that we did not understand. We talked about the story of Metacom with the praying Indians and them going down, getting the European names and stuff like that. Like that was, they didn't know what they was doing by doing that. They probably thought that by doing that they was gaining some sort of favor with the European, but didn't understand what you just did was you just made yourself a subject. So he says so there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. Now, what Moors don't understand, or like people don't understand, is what's coming down the pipeline. Right, the Prophet Jelani said he said in the 2000s that the Moors were coming to their own, and the Prophet is saying here like that the worst is yet to come, because Allah is not pleased with what's going on or what's been going on. And here, what the Prophet referencing, the fact that if we don't shape up, what we doing, this sin, all this transgression that we doing, because you can only break the law but so much before society deem you a problem. We can only go against nature but for so long before nature deem us a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening is those forces are coming together in a form that is now fits this criteria that the Prophet talking about. Right? You see what they coming with. I was reading an article about Bill Gates and infectious diseases and microbes, and how what they doing is they weaponized this whole pandemic, in the sense that it's now they use terms that this is a war.
Mm-hmm.
We at war right now. We don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
We think it's like, I don't know. I don't know what everybody think or how everybody feel about it, but I'm pretty sure we all got our own opinion. But at the same time, the language that's being used in the media, the language that's being used to describe this pandemic and how to control it, right? Subdue it, etc. is war games.
Mm-hmm.
Things being said like it's an invisible enemy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spiritual war. It's a biological war. It's a mental war. It's definitely, and like you say, what did he mean when he referenced that? The worst is yet to come, and that just reminds me of the in the questionnaire, number 7. What is the duty of a prophet? To save nations from the wrath of Allah, and that's what's unfolding.
Indeed. So he says that, and I, the Prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of the government being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, the prophet truly believe, and notice the language the prophet was really using, like, classes of citizens. You know what I'm saying? This administration of the government being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws. So he's saying, I truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers, right? And learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. And so this is like, with a lot of times with Moors, right? This information is very powerful. It can be very powerful, right? And it's very intriguing. So, usually when we come into it, like I said, the foundation, most Moors that come into this information now are not coming through the temple. So they, it's filtered in a way where it has adopted a lot of carnal customs, right? A lot of the what we find in the Moorish community, as far as I don't know really what to call it. Like, I'm just using like general terms or like colloquial terms that we know, but like redemption documents, right? Like, because the prophet used the term redemption too, right? I redeem my people. And so if the prophet redeemed us, what do we need redemption anything for? Why do Moors even, why do we even have to demonstrate that way? Why we feel we have to demonstrate that way? Because that is sovereign, that's European patriot sovereign group stuff. And that happened because the temple stopped doing their job. So Moors started looking outside the temple, outside the temples after the prophet transition for the remedy, right? Because a lot of them didn't, their sheiks were telling them, go get a birth certificate. Same thing they doing now. And then Moors was finding themselves getting hemmed up. And damn, I got a nationality card. I got this. How is this happening? Like, you know what I'm saying? So what they start doing, they start dealing with what the Europeans was dealing with. And what we got to understand, that's his demonstration, because the Europeans, at the end of the day, they are part of the union societies. They part of that union society, right? Religiously and everything, because all of it stemmed from their religious jurisdiction anyway, right? Their commercial and their religious jurisdictions, all of what they've established now has been a part of that. So they got to figure their own stuff out. That's up to them. All them processes, all that stuff. The prophet gave us what we needed. Act 6. What law gives you the authority? What law recognizes you as a Moorish American? Act 6 of my divine constitution and bylaws. If you don't understand that, that's on you. I'm sorry. Like, I can't. I'm not gonna get into a debate about constitutions and who bestows nationality and all this, that, and the third. Like, I don't do those debates no more. You know what I'm saying? I don't have the energy for that. If people do not understand how the prophet redeemed us, and he told us that he redeemed us, then that just means that those people honestly just have to do a little bit more studying with just have to do a little more study, whether that's with the prophet, whatever they're dealing with still, I don't, whatever that is. But that's where, the problem comes in. Because a lot of, like I said, a lot of the processes and stuff like that has stemmed from, those European sovereign citizen patriot groups. And this is why we're labeled as Moorish sovereigns, because they use the term Moor in the paperwork and all that stuff, but they're not connected to they're not connected to the temple or at least any de jure Moorish government, you know what I'm saying, where they don't have those contracts still out, right? A lot, like I said, a lot of Moors, they do a lot of this different type of stuff, and they still have all the issues in the world. So he says, the prophet says, so I, the prophet, am hereby calling Allah with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin, And there's not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc. In their present condition of endeavorment in which they themselves try to enforce upon the civilized world, they will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth, because our people still never understood the concept of nationality. So we always begging for some type of recognition of rights under that. And what they do, they just, they tweak a little law here, they tweak a little law here, but it don't do nothing but lead to segregation, Jim Crowism, and everything that the rest of the civilized world looks at as improper, right? Like, like, yes, we are special people, but at the end of the day, we have to, we can't, like, you can't get to, you can't get to C without going through B. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just skip over that. You can't start at A and get to Z without going through the alphabet. So, like, the concept that our people under the Negro, Black, and colored mentality don't understand is, the whole nationality aspect, the fact that you have no recognizable rights if you can't qualify to be a citizen. If you can't qualify to be a citizen, it's like applying for credit. You don't got the credit score, you're not going to get the loan. You don't qualify. You don't even meet the standard. You got to meet the standard. Once you meet the standard, come back. You don't have a nationality. You do not meet the standard qualification for citizenship anywhere. Therefore, the rights, duties, immunities, privileges, etc. that come with that don't apply to you. And what Moors don't understand is that even with a nationality, you can still be stateless. It's a lot of most people on the planet that are stateless have a nationality. They just stateless. They can't return back to their country. They've been exiled for whatever war, stuff like that, whatever reason. They stateless, but you can still be stateless with a nationality. But Moors that are really not part of what's recognized in any international law, under any law, is really being part of a state. They just got some documents that they filled out, got notarized or either witnessed and then put on a record somewhere, probably for some issue that they have, does not qualify one to be a free national. Most people that claim to be Moors are still stateless. Most of
Islam, Grand Sheik.
Islam, you got it more.
As a matter of fact, by having the document notified by the Secretary of State, i.e. the notary public, the state is validating your document. You just denationalize the document. The document has to be witnessed and signed by the Secretary of your government.
That's why we on our documents. Why. Yep.
We was with Tierra L and Associates Indigenous Law Firm. Empress Tierra L used to go to Raleigh to get her stuff notarized and to get it authenticated. To one day they just said, "Ma'am, why do you keep coming here? We acknowledge your jurisdiction. We acknowledge your tribe. You are supposed to have your own seals to validate your own documentation." I was her bodyguard. I was the war chief. I was there. See? So this is why we have the various seals for our doggone ministries. And this is why we only thing we require is the secretary, the grand secretary, to sign the documents. And the secretary for the major temple in every republic is the Secretary of State for every other subordinate temple in that republic. Islam. That's why you see on the documents there's witnesses, then you sign. See? or there's a space for the secretary's signature on there. You know, the Grand Sheik, and then the person who the document pertains to.
Islam, she, like, even my mom's, right, like when she gets, like, every year they get sworn in and they get reissued like a document, and on her documentation that she gets, it come in like a little manila envelope and be on a desk, and then they get a card, but their documents are simply signed by the Secretary of State and the governor, your Grand Sheik and your secretary.
Islamism. I'm going to put them in place long enough to show you how to run government. Islam?
Islam.
So that's an eyewitness right there that we're doing the same thing that they do for their delegations of authority in recognition of government officials. So don't believe that crap these other people are talking about. Only thing you need is a nationality, Mo. You know, you don't need no paperwork, Mo. They either ignorant or agents.
Islam. The other thing is they tell you to go down and get a court order injunction. That's even worse.
What?
We're supposed to have our own courts. It's just like we pull up the halakha court, right? We pull up the Dean of America. They you know, they got they have their own courts to be able to do like
got the Noble Ali Supreme Court to take care of those actions. And it's through that court they can assign the delegation of authority to subordinate courts.
Right, exactly.
And then the subordinate courts take care of the same situation. Each state, each republic court, or each court of the Grand Major Temple, not Grand Major, but Major Temple, meaning over the republic, has the authority to issue injunctions, especially on foreign entities. See what I mean? Restrict them from harassing us, molesting us, based upon their statutes and codes. Like Connecticut General Statutes say that they're not supposed to interfere with our activity. They're not supposed to interfere with our activity. As long as we are operating within the confines of our doctrine, of the laws that we made pursuant to Act 1.
Right.
No. Islam, I yield. Go ahead, Sheik. Get down.
Nah, but go ahead, Mo. You want to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on mute. I apologize. Go ahead, brother.
No, you good. So even right here, I just put this up. So this the Bet Dean of America. This is what it is, right? It's a forum where adherents of Jewish law can seek to have their disputes resolved in a manner consistent with the rules of Jewish law, halakha, and with the recognition that many individuals conduct commercial transactions in accordance with the commercial standards of the secular society, right? So they incorporate that with the recognition that many of them do business in a secular society. These rules and procedures are designed to provide the process of dispute resolution in a bet din, which is in consonance with the demands of Jewish law, that one diligently pursue justice while also recognizing the values of peace and compromise. The Bet Din of America adjudicates disputes in a manner consistent with secular law requirements. Now, notice that statement says that they adjudicate disputes in a manner consistent with secular law requirements for binding arbitration, so that the resolution will be enforceable in civil courts of the United States of America and various states therein. Oh my goodness. You see that? But like our stuff, but we can't have our own course and be recognized and do our own thing. Moors will say this. Moors will debate us about this, but the Jews are doing this. And they're binding, look what it says, for binding arbitration so that the resolution will be enforceable in civil courts of the United States of America and various states therein. So if there's ever an issue, even, you know what I'm saying? Even so, it shouldn't, there should never be, there shouldn't really be an issue with what it is that we supposed to be doing.
Islam.
It's just that in order for us to, kind of get to this point where kind of like where they are with this, we need adjudicable cases, right? Like, so that means like Moors have to be doing business with each other. And, whenever we do business with each other, like sometimes things go wrong, but see, we have to have the like gusto to not run to the European to handle the matter. Right. But that means like complete separation. And then, having the, the wherewithal to be like, all right, well, I'm gonna bring this matter before my own court. As a citizen of my jurisdiction, I'm gonna bring this matter before my own court and we're gonna handle it. And then what happens is this puts resolutions on the books, right? This is how common law under our jurisdiction will be developed. Because now when there's a situation where there's a similar case or similar arbitration, we have laws that can be cited. Well, you know how they bring up laws, case such and such and such and such, boom, 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 says that bow. And it's like, all right, well, it's a similar case. So we use that as, guidance for how to resolve this next case or this next matter. That's how common law works. So,
Islam.
Let me see. What time is it? Oh, it's 9:42. All right, so I'm gonna just open it up for questions. Anybody got any questions? Any comments? Anything?
I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude.
Indeed, sis.
Gave me much needed additional, just clarity and unfolding it. So it's definitely assisting me get more solid and be more solid. And so I have gratitude and I thank you so much. So I appreciate you. Islam.
Wow. So it is another, I can't remember exactly where it's at, where the Prophet Ali, he gave credence to the American Constitution as being one of the greatest documents ever written. But that's like kind of where he, that's kind of where it stopped with that one. He was, just referencing, because it is a great document. Like, you know what I mean? What we didn't really understand is that, like, the United States or the Europeans, they adopted the Constitution from the Great Law of Peace, but the Great Law of Peace was not written, right? It wasn't a written Constitution. It was really a verbal, it was an oral Constitution. Like, you just knew it because it was what was recited in the tribes and stuff like that, amongst the tribes and stuff like that. Like, you just, it's just how you live, the
exactly. It was a liberty. That's what I was just about to say.
Right.
It was liberty. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So when they constituted, when they put it in writing, it was first of all, it was a new form. It wasn't a new form of government. It had new elements to an already existing form of government. In that it was just because each state had its own constitution too. It's just that the Constitution of the United States of America brought the states together. Like, how did you, it's like when it's one thing unifying people, but it's another thing unifying people of different backgrounds, like, of different nations. You know what I mean? That's a whole other thing. And so that's what the federal government represents, and what the federal Constitution represents as governing over the states, right? Because the states, under the federal Constitution, the states are looked at as individuals. Like, right? It's just like on the state level, or the citizens or the people. So on the federal government, the states are really like kind of like citizens almost, right? And really the citizens of the federal government are really only the representatives, right? Within that jurisdiction, they're the only ones that are bound. They are the trustees, right? They're duty bound to that trust, right? The citizens of the states, the several state citizens are the beneficiaries and grantors of that trust. You know, so like it's the same thing with so with the 14th Amendment citizenship status, what it makes you as an individual, it makes you a trustee of that jurisdiction. You now become duty bound to all the laws, rules, regulations, etc. that fall under that. And so what the prophet did in his day, you know, because the process was a lot more simple. Like I said, it wasn't all these contracts and stuff like that. By you just coming in, taking out membership, and you know, by your own free will, meaning sui juris, right? By your own free will, by making that action, you've become I forget what case this is, but the case actually states that like trustees of a certain type of trust, which is the type of the religious corporation, you know, saying it is a trust, and it's a certain type of trust. It's really an express trust. It's not a constructive trust. Like the constructive trust is your birth certificate and your social security number, because you didn't do that of your own free will. When you was a baby or child, you know, a person of majority did that for you, and you assume that position, and you enter into contracts under that name, and you know, all types of agreements, and that's what kind of binds you up, and it makes the fraud real, kind of, so to speak, right? Because everything you accumulated so far has been under that name. We can't act like we don't drive cars and got houses and live in rented spaces and purchase things in that name for our own, and ingest food, and like we don't live off that name. Like we can't act like, okay, oh yeah, it's a fraud, but your life not a fraud. Like you get up every day, jump in that car, go to that job, make that fiat, come back, sign off on documents in that name with your hand. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't negate that. It's one thing to conceptualize it, but then, you know, it's a practical matter too. And so that's where Rome or Babylon, you know, this is where that system come into place. And it's a system that's been around for a long time. And at the end, and believe it or not, it's a system that our ancestors instituted. Babylon was an Amorite people. Babylonians was an Amorite people. They were Canaanite people, Hamites. They was Moors. And so, like, you know, it's a process that, you know, you have to go through. So in the prophet's time, the process was a lot easier. It was a lot simpler. You just come in, you proclaim your nationality, you know, like he said, do all business in a new name, leave all business that's in the old name alone. It was very simple. Now, since you have done so much business in that constructive name, in that constructive trust name, you have to take care of those agreements. And there's a way to do that, where you're not sending somebody a bunch of documents that they don't recognize. It's like, what is all this language like this? Matter of fact, I have pulled it up because and don't get me wrong, I used this document myself. I filed on a few cases, for the record, this document for myself. But when you put this on, don't nobody, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool, you know, but when you start getting into language, like, you know, all this right here, you know, that's cool. You know, we understand what all this means. Like, you know, then we start talking about certain stuff like this. You know, like it's a lot for anybody to look at and be like, because with this document right here, your nationality and identification card, as issued by the Prophet Noble Jelani, should just take care of all of this.
It's
You know, this like if you know, like at the end of the day, like if you were in a situation where you didn't even have this and your life depended on you identifying yourself a certain type of way, you're not about to hand nobody this, or you're not about to remember, you're not gonna and it wouldn't even be intelligible to anybody if you start spitting off stuff about you know, I don't know, Al Moroccan, de jure, freeholder by birth, inheritance, progenitor. You know what I'm saying? Like you start screaming all that, nobody's really gonna understand that.
yeah,
But you hear somebody
complicated.
you hear somebody your nationality and identification card, which was all you needed during the time of the Prophet Noble Jelani. And really, it's all you really need now if you live in accordance to his laws, because you just shouldn't have a whole bunch of contracts that you need to, well, we shouldn't, but we do have a whole bunch of contracts that we need to distinguish ourselves from. Because imagine if you was born imagine you was born, right, in a temple. And, you know, you got, you know, if you did need a document, you know, you have your baptismal certificate issued by your Grand Sheik, signed by your Grand Sheik or your secretary, right? You have, and typically, like, if you were born in the temple, you don't need most of the conversion documents that we have are for people that convert, right? And the thing about, it's funny because I ran into and I got offended when he said it, but I ain't realize it though. I ran into he was Albanian and Turkish, and he asked me, you know, I had showed him my ID. I told him I was Moorish. I showed him my ID and everything, and he was like, "Oh," he was like, "So you're a convert?" No, he asked me, "Was you born like that?" He said, "You was born a Moor," and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Well, why you got all the tattoos?" And I was like, "Oh, well," I was like, "Well, nah, you right. I convert." And then when I found out the truth about who I was, I made the step. You know, I converted. He's like, "Inshallah, inshallah," you know, and you know, that's the difference, because like people that are if you born in a temple, you know, the only thing you're gonna have when you come in is you're gonna get the birth, you're gonna get the baptismal, your soul return certificate, your baptismal certificate, right? And then you might get, like, when you get of age, you know, you might get issued an identification card, or, you know, some other form of school like a school ID if we had the schools going and stuff like that. But you gotta, you know, it wouldn't be, you know, because we have certain other documents that are issued to members that convert. Why? Because you have to take care of that estate trust. You have to go back and take care of certain documents and certain contracts. So we issue certain additional types of documents to be able to do that. But if you came in a temple and you learned properly how to, you know, like, you wouldn't have any of those things to worry about. So you wouldn't have certain types of documentation. So even stuff like this would not be necessary. You know, and then when it comes to affidavits, right, and different documentation, whatever you want to call it, an affidavit, a notice, a proclamation, you know, those things, when it comes to especially dealing with another government, right? Those type of documents, or when you're trying to substantiate your status politically, the documents that you use have to be issued by a government. If you're trying to communicate with your school, you know, you got an incident with like a domestic violence problem, or, you know, there's like an issue where somebody like, I don't know, discriminated on you in a store or something like that, a personal affidavit would suffice. Like, you know, something like this would be okay. Like, right. Like, but when it comes to you substantiating your political status, you can't use something like this. It's not from a government. This is where Moors have an issue. We try to enforce free national principles in venues and in ways that is not applicable. And so we have, and then, you know, we have problems, then the confusion comes, and then, like, you know, when it is time to really like make stuff happen, you know, there's a hard time, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to call somebody supervisor, you got to threaten a lawsuit and stuff like that. Well, we should not even be having that hard of an issue. It should already be mandatory, like from the governor, the mayors down. That's all. Listen, we send in a notice to the governor and the mayor, wherever the subordinate temple is. I don't care, from the schools to the business establishments, all of them have EIN, tax ID numbers that link back to the Secretary of State's office. Everybody get put on notice. So when our members, when we go, we have to do it and interact in secular commercial activity, the same way we just read that the Jews do from time to time. It's not an issue when it comes to our documentation. Why? Because we can't be forced to associate. Not only do we have the freedom of religion, we have the freedom of assembly. The freedom of assembly, which is enshrined in the First Amendment too, means you have the freedom to associate. Means you cannot be forced to sign a contract to be able, I gotta have a state ID. No, I have free association, and I have the right to contract. Because they can't abridge that right. You know, so, but if we not demonstrating properly, and if we're demonstrating improperly, it's going to be harder for us to be able to freely navigate. You know, and like the thing about it, I don't have a problem. Like, when I navigate, I don't have a problem necessarily with their government. Like, they're policy enforcers. Like, I had a state trooper behind me. He was behind me for like 1.5 miles, 2 miles. And you know, I don't have state issue plates on my car. I have temporary temple plates on my car right now. And when I you know what I'm saying, when that happens, like, you know, I slow down. Like, you know what I'm saying, I'm not about to, like, I don't throw my signal on and get over and nothing like that. I slow down. And so he was up on the bumper. And then, you know, like, and then, like, when I look back up again, I noticed he was like maybe 3 cars behind my car. Like, not actual cars, but like 3 car spaces behind my car. And then, you know, I had to turn into the gas station. And when I turned, he kept going. But, like, you know, I haven't had an issue. I don't have an issue, you know, normally with their government. When I do have an issue, it's usually when I have to go into like a business establishment or something like that, and I have to present. They be like, "Oh, you got ID," and I present my ID. Like, I had to go get the Moor his property from you know, because he has an incident, and like they have him under that straw name because whatever. I'm not going, but you know, I had to go get his property, and when I went to go, you know, they asked you for ID. I went to go give him my ID, and he was like, you know, he looked at it kind of funny, and he was like, he's like, "Yo, where your birthday?" I was like, "Right there in red." He was like, "Oh, all right." He was like, "This different, like, you know." I was like, "Yeah, it's not a, you know, it's not a state ID." He was like, "What is it?" Like, he's like, "What is this? A religion?" He said, "What is this? I forgot what he called it. I think he said like I think he said fraternal or something like that. I forget what he said exactly, but I said, "No, it's a religious." I said, "It's tribal religious ID." And he was like, "Oh, all right." And that was it. Like, you know, signed off the stuff, and let me go about my way. Even and then most times places accommodate you. So like I had to use my debit card or his debit card to put money in the machine or whatever, and they asked you for, first it said you have to have a driver's. First I seen driver's license, and I'm like, "Dad, you gotta have a driver's license on here to put money on it?" And the dude said, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah, unfortunately, you gotta have a driver's license." And then I looked and there was another option. I put the other option and, you know, I was able to just put in my information. And, you know, even with, sometimes I have issue when I go to like, not like, so like most places, like supermarkets, they have a Western Union. And sometimes, you know, like, you know, you either send money or receive money through Western Union, and either you can do it with a test, what they call like a test question where you don't need an ID, or, you know, if you have it, if they send it regularly, you have to present your ID. Some places they ask for 2 forms, so it's like a debit card and an ID or whatever. And so when I went into, and I should call tomorrow because this happened Sunday. So when I really was like upset about it, and I called, they was closed because I was gonna put in a complaint with the complaint division, because I went to Western Union and they wouldn't take my ID. The lady, and I told her, get the supervisor. The supervisor came down. She was like, nah. And it wasn't like one of those things where it was like, well, let me take this into some real like type of consideration. It was just like, you know, first the lady called her, and she called back. She called her just to come down. So she was supposed to come down, and then normally when that happens, they supposed to come down and they supposed to talk to you, not the person that called them, because now they're gonna get a biased statement, right? I'm the customer, like I'm the one that needs to be served. You need to come to me and see what the issue is, not your employee, right? So so she didn't come, so she called her. Now they having a conversation. And now, you know, I can't hear what's going to be said because it's plexiglass now between you. You can't even get up to the counter. They got the divider thing. And so I can't hear what's being said. So when she comes, I don't even recognize it's her. And when she comes, she walks behind and go right to the lady again. Now they having another conversation. So I interject. I'm like, oh, excuse me. Like, you here for me, right? And she's like, yeah, what's the issue? I said, well, she's saying that I can't use that ID. And I said, you know, she's saying that that's policy, is Western Union policy. That's not Western Union. It must be your policy as, you know, Stop and Shop. That must be something like that. And I was like, that's, I've never had that issue. I said, it's a tribal identification. Like, it should be an option in your computer to be able to do that. She said, no, it has to be a state issue ID, driver's license. It has to be a driver's license, state issue ID, or a passport. So I said, like, what happens when you have people that come in here that's foreign, that might be a foreign national or something like that, don't have a state, they from a different country and they just got a visa. Like, what you do? She was like, well, we don't service them. I was like, what? You know, I'm like, all right, well, let me get your name. You know, I took their names and stuff like that. I never followed it up because it was Sunday, and then like the day after, I just went to the place that I normally go, and I was able to cash it straight up. You know, she input the information. You know, because I told them too, I said, listen, anything you need is a name, an address, and a birth date. You know what I'm saying? All that information is there. And you have a second form of ID. You know, I gave her my debit card. It has my name, it has my free national name on it too. So I'm like, what's the problem? So those are the only places that normally, you know, there's an issue. But just like what the dude from TSA told me, it's a training thing. It's a training problem, right? First of all, we got to understand, like, most Moorish IDs, most IDs that are considered Moorish IDs are flagged as fraudulent identifications within their databases. Them RV Bay IDs, I don't know. I don't know for sure, but you know, I can't say that. They flagged, yeah. So like, you know, a lot of them are flagged. So they don't fly nowhere. And like a lot of people, they know about this, you know, this Moorish thing, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people know about it. They've heard about it. And so when they see a lot of stuff, there's automatic bias. There's automatic red flags that go up. So like our duty, on top of teaching our people this thing, right? Demonstrating this thing properly, you know, we have to combat the confusion. And with, they say the road to hell is led with good intentions. It's paved with good intentions. Like, although, like, you know, the most of the Moors that have, you know, brought a lot of minds to this information, you know, had good intentions about it, it has led to a lot of confusion. And I can say for myself, and I can only speak for myself, Like when I came into this information, I was using all this. Like I had a whole booklet, like one of them 3-ring binders, which all RV everything printed. I had RV Bey whole website in a book, pretty much.
Yep. Likewise.
You know what I'm saying? So like I'm not coming at this information like I've never used it, experienced it, right? I'm not like trying to like tell somebody something that I've never been through myself. And when I was putting all this stuff when I was using these documents and I was putting them on the record and stuff like that, none of my issues, it did nothing for me. Like it didn't help or nothing. All it really did was inform them of some new persona that I had taken on, right? Which at the end of the day, that's supposed to be private information anyway. So like a lot of the processes, right? Even this thing, right? You got a lot of processes. You fill out these documents and they want you're instructed to send it out to, 80 million places. Notarize it, return receipt it, certify, mail it, send it here, send it there, make a master copy for yourself. But for what? Why would you want to, if the goal is privacy, right? I'm operating on the private. And see, this is where a lot of times, we be mixing oil and water and don't even know it, right? I want to be on the private side. I want to be private, but that make you public. Anything you put on the record is public information. And a lot of times, and I'm not gonna say that, but for certain court stuff, it goes into third-party databases too. And so like we don't know, this is why the prophet said like this, he said, I bought you something you can't tear up, it'll tear you up. And people have lost their houses, people have lost their freedom, and to each their own. You know what I'm saying? If that's what fulfills a person's soul, by quote unquote, taking on like going hard like that, but if that's what it takes for that individual, that's that individual. But what I'm saying is, like, me personally, I don't want to have to lose everything to gain myself. Right? I shouldn't have to lose. You shouldn't have to lose everything just to gain yourself. And I don't say that in the sense that you have to lose you shouldn't have to lose like that part of you that is holding you back, because you got to destroy that which keeps you from unfolding into your true self. That's all of us individually. That's our job, to slay that dragon within, so that we can, move into that Christ-like mind state of that God consciousness, right? So that's everybody's individual. But what I'm saying is, it shouldn't take people to, like, I see it all the time. I see it online. I hear stories. Like, I know a lot of Moors struggling right now because, they following behind some process or some ideology with this Moorish science that has taken more from them than it's given. You shouldn't be taking, like, this movement, this walk, this journey shouldn't take more from you than what you give. Like, but you gotta give. And if you give a lot, if you're that type of person where you give a lot, you don't really expect nothing in return, kudos to you. Like, that's commendable. But the Prophet Noble Ali said, if you don't do nothing else, just proclaim your nationality. Meaning, if you don't do nothing else, just join. If you're not going to join, you're not going to attend your meetings, if you're not going to take on the affairs of the temple, if you're not going to pay your dues, you're not going to do those type of things, at least proclaim your nationality. Right? But like, we not asking, we over here, like, we don't even, we don't ask for, I honestly don't even like asking nobody for nothing. Like, I you know what I mean? Like, I feel like those that, and that's just a personal thing with me as being in a position that I have to grow into, like, because you have to learn how to delegate. Because this is why Moses had such a problem, and why Jethro had to tell him, listen, you can't be sitting all day adjudicating. You You gotta appoint people, you know. So like like I said, we don't demand like nothing to nobody. Like I said, I feel like if you feel like this is the place where you're gonna volunteer, you're gonna contribute, you're gonna get in where you fit in. And most of this work at the ground level and at the, you know, at the beginning is volunteer. Like ain't no compensation in this. Like me personally, I had to fall back from my ministry because I couldn't support myself. I had to fall back from my ministry and dig into my and get my, you know, I'm still developing my business, but I really had to do that because in the Grand Sheik already he told me about, like, you know, before I even, you know, when I was appointed and stuff like that, we had, you know, personal conversations and stuff like that, but it was always like, you know, we'll put you on it, listen more, like, you know, this is what it is, and like a lot of that stuff I see, and it's like, you know, I had to fall back, you know, because a lot of times Moors, you know, it is what it is, man. Like, you know, most Moors come in, they get the information, and then they out. You know, they go off on their own thing, or I don't, you know, it could be something else. It could be more to it than that, or whatever. But my experience, majority of the time, has been where, you know, Moors come in, they get the information, they pay. You know, most of the time they just, you know, they pay like the first month or whatever. And, you know, what I was doing was you get all your documents. So like I was, you know, because most couldn't pay. Like when I came in, I paid my year up front. Like I paid my year. You know, I got my documents and I got busy. Like we was getting to work. But it became a lot because it was just me. You know, I had two other Moors kind of with me at that time, but they was going through stuff too. But it was difficult, man. You know, it was difficult. And then when you put a lot into it and, you know, you see certain stuff and you don't really get much back, it gets dejectful, you know what I'm saying? It gets hard, but, you know, the key is just to, you know, to keep in your mind that, like, it's bigger than you. It ain't about you. Like, this is not no individual thing, you know? So, but like my experience was Moors would come in and get the information, they pay like they little month dues, get their documents and slide out. I don't hear from them. I hit them up, and then like I'm not gonna reach out because like I'm just not gonna do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just not gonna do that. So, you know, we do these calls 3 times a week, and like it you know, it's a lot. Like it's not easy, and like honestly, like I used to come up with whole demonstrations. Like, but this is when I had time, you know what I'm saying? When I had the time to sit back and be on my computer and in my phone, you know, surfing the web and coming up with whole demonstrations for that for 3 times a week. You know, it was different, you know, but you know what I'm saying? What time is it now? Oh, that. All right. So, but nevertheless, we appreciate the Moors that are on this call faithfully. You know, we just appreciate the energy, and this is why we do it, because, and keep the questions coming. Keep you know, it's all good energy, because we need the Moors to really understand this doctrine, not just the doctrine, but just to understand, you know, what it is to be part of Moorish Holy, really, because we different. You know, we're very different. We're in the sense that, like, from the temple Moors to Moors outside the temple, and really at the end, I say this out of not just, I could say bias, because you know what I'm saying. You know, I love my jurisdiction, but I don't, you know, I say this genuinely. Like, Moorish Holy is here to bridge that gap. You know, and like the only other Moorish group that I could see giving us smoke, I've sat under those Moors, and from what I see, what I've gathered, and what I know, they are not part of a de jure temple. they can't do what needs to be done. Like, and they have a lot to offer. I'm not going to lie. And the National Grand Sheik know what group of Moors I'm talking about, but they have a lot to offer. But they under a compromised jurisdiction. And like, they the only ones that I see out of all the Moorish groups, and I'm talking about from Ali's men to Taharka to Usar to I'm trying to think of any other, like even Jose Pimenta in them, you know. That other group is the only group that I see that could really like go smoke like toe to toe with us about now when it comes to like certain other topics like religious stuff and stuff like that, digging into like the Quran, the Bible, and maybe like certain history, they probably like they really good. But as far as like what the Prophet brought and how to execute his law in the sense that like what all the Moors are really looking for, but to do it without being compromised or putting the Moors in danger. Can't no other Moorish group deal with us.
Islam, quick interjection. Just to add to that, I can agree there because, like I said, I'm new to y'all and coming in and understanding the system as well. And I've been around other Moorish groups, and nobody else is talking the language, or if they are getting close to it, it's still compromised information because it's not being presented in a way that the Prophet left it.
Right.
So that's one of the things I definitely, I always let you know more. And Grand Sheik, I appreciate y'all because y'all brought it full circle. You know what I'm saying? And able to really, spin that wagon around and close everything off and secure it. So Islamism to that.
Islamism.
Yeah, I think that's why me and Brother Q, like, we kind of connect like that because, he kind of been through, he sat in temples, he been through the temples and stuff like that. And that's how I felt when Jelani came up, and because I was dealing with a group of Moors where I'm at, and one of them, he knows Jelani, like they go back and stuff. And he was like, yo, listen, we having the Grand Sheik, he coming down. And I was like, what? I was like, Grand Sheik who? Like, from where? You know what I'm saying? And when we had the meeting, and Jelani was like, because it was me and another brother had our fez on, and Jelani asked a question, and ain't nobody answering. He was like, well, the two Moors in here with the fezzes on, y'all supposed to know that. And I was like, all right, well, and then he started going into like, he started really demonstrating and breaking down. He pulled out the plate, the license, he pulled out the license plate. I was like, and then he went into that, but the way he was, because I had been digging more into the religious jurisdiction. I had been looking into like I was like, all right, well, what's this Religious Corporation Act, and what's Heard Smith revised statute. And what really turned me on to that was when I called the Grand Sheik of the other group that I'm talking about, that I said, they're the only ones that could kind of hang with us right now. And when I called him, or I texted him, because we used to text back and forth and stuff like that, and I said, yo, I mentioned chapter 32 of 805 Illinois. I use that reference, 805 Illinois, da 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 da. And I was like, yo, what you think about this? This, blah blah. And he was like, Mo, who you? And his response was, who you been talking to? I was, once like when I got that response, I was like, I'm on to something. So I started digging in more. And the more and more I started looking into it, I started to see why Prophet Noble Ali went that route. And then, when Jelani came around, and he kind of connected everything for me and made it like, really just opened my eyes and made it plain. And it was like, yo, all right, boom, that's what it is. Like, that's the link. For me, that was my missing link. That was my missing piece to the puzzle. So I was like, oh, a thing. And and then with all of that, I've been like the temple where I used to go, like they got it's nice. It looked nice. Everybody is, you know what I'm saying? Everybody look nice. And you know, it's funny because it's not funny, but like it's kind of like ironic because Moorish Holy, like we don't got no big building. We don't got, our sheik, we ain't got, we have a like I have a uniform, the Grand Sheik, National Grand Sheik, we got uniform, but we don't it's not like that. It's not like this grandiose, Moors, I think when they think of the temple, they think of like walking into this place, you got this image in your mind, like this walking into this place where it's like, this grand extravagant, maybe, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But it's not, that's not what it is over here. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that drives me so much, because not that like that's gonna matter, because at the end of the day, Allah is not in no temple. Your freedom not in no building. You know what I'm saying? But when I look at other societies, I look at other organizations, I see, what it is that they have, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it would be nice. And why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And part of that is because we not compromised. Like, like and the thing about it is, Moors, like when it comes to like if we was a compromised temple, I could get us I could get us access to a lot of state money. My mother's a state representative, and she's the co-chair of appropriations. Appropriations means we dial out the money. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen organizations that have lobbied my mom and gotten $10,000, $20,000. Like, it ain't nothing. Like we can make that happen to me and Grand Sheik. We can make that happen tomorrow. We could go down to the state capitol. We could go up there to Hartford, go to the state capitol building, fill out some documentations, do that, and you know what I'm saying? It can be done. But that's not what the prophet instructed. That's not what he intended. He intended the members to support the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And not just in finance and stuff like that, but works and stuff like that. Hit the streets, propagate this gospel. We need philanthropists. We need people that's going to contribute to and help us enforce our free national constitution of the United States of America. That divine constitution and bylaws.
Islam. Even when quick interjection, when he says I need finances, I need a bad finances, in etymology terms just means settlement. And settlement can come in any form. So fiat is the most important,
right?
though.
We can settle for whatever. You feel me? Exactly. You got some labor to give up. You can take 30 hours of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Volunteering, all that type of stuff, man. So it's just this movement is only going to go as far as we're willing to take it. Like a lot of Moors, they be like, oh, well, if you the temple and you a nation, and why you ain't got this, and why you don't got that, and why you don't got that? It's like, yo, because we don't got the people. It's not even like the brother said, it's not even about the money, necessarily, because like what's the point of that? Like, if what I'm saying, we could get a lot done with just a few of us with a substantial amount of money, but what's the point of having a million, a whole bunch of land, and you ain't got nobody to feed?
Right.
Like, yeah, all right, okay, yeah, we could wholesale it to another like group and stuff like that. We could always make the money, but like it's like, all right, we supposed to have our own farmers market, our own grocery stores, our own delis, our own, you know what I'm saying? This way we can have trucking companies, you know what I'm saying, to be able to move the produce, stuff like that. Yeah.
And quick interjection, it's like the Amish people out here. Well, I live in the Jewish community, so they all industrious. They got buildings, they putting up buildings every minute, and they got shopping centers and all that. But the Amish people, they probably like an hour away from here, a little bit closer to PA. But they come down on the weekends at the flea market and sell all their produce, sell all that. They sell, they used to sell, and might still be selling. I don't know what it is, but they sell ribs and all of them stuff. Whatever they got, they harvesting. They bring it down and sell it at the market, and everybody and they mama in there buying it up. So, and they go right back to their community.
Yep. And that's what we used to like. I was at one point in time, me and my significant other, we was doing the flea market. You know, we set up a table. You gotta pay a little fee. Some places you gotta, when you don't need no license or nothing, you just gotta make sure you just pay the fee. You set up your joint, and you get busy, and you know what you make, you leave with, you come back the next day, you set it up again. And honestly, that was how our ancestors did. Like, you know, they would set up a market and take it down faster than you could blink.
Yep. We were merchants. That's all we were. That's why the prophet said, go back to the ancient mindset of your foremothers and forefathers. We were merchants.
Word. But see, like, it's one thing, you know, having a belief in yourself and your abilities is really based on knowing that, right? But if you come up with the slave mentality and you coming into the Moorish paradigm with that mentality, it's still hard to be in Dutch. Like me, like I don't like, the only thing that's really been hard for me, because even though I do credit repair, I don't have a social security number, so I don't have credit. Like they run I give them the tax ID number, they're gonna run the tax ID number, and the tax ID number going to the temple. They run it, but it's not going. Ain't nothing attached to that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
right.
But I've been able to make a living I've been able to start now to make a living for myself without having to subject myself to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been able to, like, do this on my own. It's just a little certain stuff that I'm, working out. And really what it come down to, me and the National Grand, we just got to sit down and figure out how we can start applying for certain stuff with the temple. Cause like certain stuff is like kind of easy, not easy, but it's less intrusive, because a lot of times like they're gonna want certain type of statements and stuff like that, and whatever, like bank statements and stuff, like, and proof of income and stuff like that. But like with the religious, with what we have, it's a little different. So it's just communicating and opening that door, and then having that dialogue about what needs to be presented. Because I mean, right now, like I got a child on the way, and
Islamism, brother.
Islam.
Congrats.
Thank you, man. And the living situation,
yes,
like,
Islam.
I need to be a little better. So we trying to find a new place, but it's like a little difficult. I got the income, but I don't have right now. They doing all this credit stuff, and it's like, if they contract it in the way where if they don't do that, they'll lose out. So essentially what I have to find is somebody that basically own a property outright, that's not
private owners. Yep.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They're not under like HUD, or they're not under certain regulations and stuff like that. So it create a contract.
Yeah, and see that's where Moors really, and that's where we got to be industrious at too, is real estate. Understand it, because even though I don't know, I haven't heard any stories, but the prophet provided lodging, and I make that assumption because he had people at the temple. And if you got people at the temple, of course people was living there. You know what I'm saying? If you got all this property across 19, 20 cities or whatever have you, you got to have real estate. You got to have all that, the plots. You got to have the buildings. You got to have all of that. Right. And it was provided by the people for the people. But that's where Moors come in, because you shouldn't have to struggle with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be a more within a talent group that can say, hey, I got this building, brother. You can stay here with your kindred. Here's what you got to pay. You know what I mean? That's it.
Right. And like, on another scenario too is that you know, we're supposed to the temple's supposed to be able to subsidize living for its members.
Islam.
Like the same way that the government would do it, we supposed to be able to, it's supposed to, and this is where we have to take a look at how they are able to do that with private owners through rental properties and set up a similar mechanism for the temple where it's some sort of voucher system, whatever the case may be. But that only comes when we have the treasury to do that. Because the makeup of whatever the private renter is going to charge has to be made up somewhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is why Section 8 they get a voucher, they give a voucher to the landlord, whatever, however that works. You know, it'd be $800. Like, I don't know how it necessarily worked, but you know, that difference has to come from somewhere. So, and then also we supposed to have, like the brother said, lodging. Like, why, you know, the temple should own an apartment building where members take out refuge, whatever word we would want to use under that, you know what I'm saying, authority. You know, it wouldn't be like residence, but they take out whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that should be, you know what I'm saying, that's something that's, you know, that's national principles in practice. So
that's ancient. We was always providing hospitality, and that's the industry that I'm in. I'm in the hospitality industry, you know what I'm saying, on the digital side of it. But that's like, I recognized it when I seen it in the business, even in, you know, real estate. I recognized it and was like, oh, this is what our ancient foremothers and fathers was doing.
Right.
This is what our prophet is talking about. Right. And man, shoot, brother, we got a lot to talk about more. We got we can get into it. Shoot.
For sure. So yeah, man. So if don't nobody got any more they want to contribute or add, you know what I'm saying, or any questions or comments, we'll close it out.
No, it's just gratitude, much love, more love, more love, more love. Islam.
Indeed. It's that first principle. Let's go. So yeah, Moors, all right. Well, y'all know how I go. We're gonna close it out in unison. So, you know, that's that rising to my highest height, feet of the 40.
What happened? Everybody still there?
Islam.
Okay. Akeem.
Probably dropped out.
All right. Well, this was a lovely Zoom. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone's energy.
Islam, likewise, mother. Peace and love to everybody. Still there, Grand Sheik?
I'm trying to get back in.
Islam. Hello?
Islam, brother.
Yeah. I had cut off right quick. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I thought okay, cool. I was wondering if y'all
we're
closed out.
We're waiting. No. We're all together on the one.
All right, cool. So I'm a so you know, rising to my highest height, feet at a 45-degree angle. Our fingers on the left, 2 fingers on the right. I'm gonna just count to 3 and then we just go in. So 1, 2, 3. Allah,
the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Allah is my protector,
my God,
and my salvation, my night and by
through His holy prophet,
Jelani.
Amen.
Islam, peace and
Um,
love.
Peace,
much
peace.
love. Love you, Moors. Islam.
Islam.
Great call. I actually stayed up the whole call, y'all.
Great. Great Zoom. Great Zoom. Hey,
You gonna be knocked
Jelani.
out on that. You gonna be knocked out on the Joe, man.
Yeah, hey, don't say it too loud now. You know, hey, I can't promise nothing.
Islam more. I was
Islam.
just back listening, man. That was a great insight, brother. You really broke it down. Really
No
did.
doubt more. Thank you for
This is
joining,
our
man.
brother.
Thank you for being on.
Yeah, this
Islam.
is Brother Cameron Moore calling from South Carolina. I'm a real good friend with the Sheik. So,
Okay, Islam.
Islam.
Yeah, some of the stuff I was talking about, Brother Cam can attest to. He's my tribesman in Moab, Sierra, Cherokee, Kiowa Nation. You know, and
Oh
some
yeah.
of the things we had to go through. You know, I didn't know you was on, Cam. I'd have demonstrated with you, brother.
Yeah. Oh, I was just listening, man. I didn't want to interrupt the flow because it was just too much coming. You know, the way he was going inside and really just breaking it down. You know what I'm saying? So, and it made a lot of sense. A lot of sense.
Well, and see, we have to do this. Unfortunately, we have to do this because you've got a lot of people out there, and I'm not going to be too long because we already closed out. But you
Nah,
got a
go
lot
ahead,
of
Sheik.
people
You got it, man.
are they're hell bent on not only egotistic behavior, but you got to understand some people are assigned to confuse.
Yep.
They have an assignment to confuse the people. Their biggest fight right now is we're waking up and they can hardly control it. So the only way you can control it is by confusion.
Yep.
Think about it. You got all these Afrocentrics coming at Moorish Americans. Why? You know, if you're Afrocentric, you're an Afrocentric. What business does that have with me? What is my religion? Why does my religion make you so upset? It's my religion. It's not yours. And that's how we have to deal with it, y'all. Don't try to doggone argue with these people. Don't try to doggone a debate with these people. These people are heavy and they're very intelligent, very articulate, but at the end of the day, they are slaves. They are wards of the state. If they haven't taken care of their business, they are slaves. And that makes no sense arguing with slaves. You know, no disrespect. You know, just like Morpheus said, there may be doctors, lawyers, your mom, your dad, but until they unplug, they are your enemy. Because out of their misunderstanding, they can make unnecessary trouble for you. Those will be the ones call the police on you because they think you're breaking the law. Those will be the ones that repeat something, repeat something that they don't understand and get you on a radar somewhere. See what I mean?
Yep.
So we have to doggone respectfully leave them where they are. If they don't understand your religion or Islamism or how we do things, don't force it on them. Heck, some people in their DNA were never Moors. They don't have a Moorish drop in their DNA. You know what I mean? They might be from the eastern coast of Africa or one of the doggone islands or something. And their DNA doesn't remember their identity as a Moor. We're here right now and we're dealing with this information because we were here in the past. That's what the prophet meant when he said, who you were is who you are, without doubt or contradiction. More. Islam, I yield.
Islam.
Y'all have a blessed night. Anybody want to call, keep me awake, y'all can do it. I'm going to need it.
Yeah. All right, Moses. I appreciate this, man. I'm most definitely getting on a call Wednesday.
Hey, man, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, brother.
Yep, same time, same link.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I'm going to say Islam. Peace, brother.
Islam, y'all. Peace.
I got to get ready to turn over. Hit it tomorrow.
All right.
All right.
All right, more safe travels.
Yes, sir. Peace.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.